Imagine being handed by sheer sporting miracle the most extraordinary story in the history of professional football. A title nobody saw coming. A city turned upside down. An owner who made the impossible real. Imagine having all of that. The badge, the memory, the identity, and then watching it dismantle itself, piece by piece, decision by decision, season by season, until the day arrives when a 2-2 draw with Hull City at your own ground confirms what nobody 10 years ago would have believed possible. A Premier League champion in League One. Not hypothetically, not in a distant future someone warned you about. On April 21st of 2026, exactly a decade after one of the most astonishing sporting achievements the world has ever seen, Leicester City are dropping into the third tier of English football. This is not a story about bad luck. It is not a story about one bad season or one bad manager. It is a story about what happens when a club lets a dream become a delusion, and what it costs when the bill finally arrives. Welcome to Mega Football. Let's get started. To understand how far Leicester have fallen, you have to start where they were. Not just in terms of league position, but in terms of what they meant to the sport. On May 2nd of 2016, Leicester City were confirmed as Premier League champions. They had been given odds of 5,000 to 1 at the start of that season. The previous year, they had spent the majority of the campaign in the relegation zone. Their squad had been assembled for a fraction of what their rivals spent in a single transfer window. And Claudio Ranieri, a manager written off by many as yesterday's appointment, had taken them to a title that nobody, not even their most devoted supporters, genuinely believed was coming. It was the kind of story that made people fall in love with football again. Not just in England, globally. The sheer improbability of it was the point. The whole world watched. Andrea Bocelli sang inside the King Power Stadium. Players who had been released by other clubs or signed for almost nothing were now champions of the most watched league on earth. Jamie Vardy, Riyad Mahrez, N'Golo Kante. They were not a team of superstars. They were 11 players who believed in something, led by a man who made them trust it. That is what Leicester City were, and everything that followed happened in the shadow of it. There is a before and after in the modern history of Leicester City, and it is not the 2016 title. It is a Saturday evening 2.5 years later. The man who bought Leicester City in 2010, when they were still in the Championship, was Vichai Srivaddhanaprabha, a Thai billionaire who ran King Power, one of Southeast Asia's largest travel retail businesses. He attended matches. He paid for players' flights and medical treatment out of his own pocket. He handed free beer and donuts to supporters. He had Thai monks bless the King Power Stadium pitch. He was, in a sport full of owners who kept their distance from the human side of the game, present. Forbes estimated his personal net worth at around £3.8 billion at the time of his death. He was the 5th richest person in Thailand. He did not need Leicester City. He chose it. On October 27th of 2018, after a draw with West Ham, Vichai's helicopter lifted off from the centre of the King Power Stadium pitch, as it had done dozens of times before. Supporters had grown used to the sight of it. It cleared the top of the stadium. And then the tail rotor control failed, the aircraft began an uncontrollable spin, and it fell into the car park outside, killing all 5 people on board. The city of Leicester gathered the next morning. They brought flowers. The grief was not performative. Vichai had made those people believe their club was something special again. He had given them a title. He had treated them not as revenue, but as the point of the whole thing. His son Ayawat took over as chairman. The ambition didn't stop. If anything, it intensified, as if the family were determined to honor what Vichai had started. But the limitless personal commitment that Vichai had brought to every decision, every relationship inside the club, every moment of crisis, that was gone. And over the years that followed, its absence slowly showed. In the years immediately after the title and the tragedy, Leicester looked, at least from the outside, like a properly established top-half Premier League club. Brendan Rodgers arrived in February 2019 and transformed them into something genuinely exciting to watch. High energy, well-organized, with a clear attacking identity built around the best version of Jamie Vardy and a rapidly maturing James Maddison. In the 2019-20 season, they finished 5th with 62 points, playing football that genuinely threatened the established top 6. In 2021, they won the FA Cup, their first ever, beating Chelsea at Wembley on a day that felt like the continuation of something. They qualified for Europe twice. They spent at a level that reflected genuine Premier League ambition. Wesley Fofana, Patson Daka, Boubakary Soumaré, Ricardo Pereira. The wage bill expanded accordingly. The infrastructure expanded. The expectations recalibrated around a future that felt settled. The problem was that the financial model underpinning all of it depended on something remaining true that was about to stop being true. That Leicester would always be a Premier League club. The warning signs came in the 2021-22 season. Injuries to key players, a squad that had been pushed hard without adequate depth, an 8th place finish that felt like underachievement given the investment, and a wage structure that, even with Premier League television money flowing in, was beginning to ask difficult questions. The 2022-23 season answered those questions brutally. Rodgers was sacked in April 2023, replaced by Dean Smith. They went into the final day needing a result and didn't get it, relegated. The club that had been 5th and FA Cup winners 2 years before was dropping into the Championship for the first time since 2014. The squad that had cost close to £300 million over the previous 4 years would now play second-tier football. What happened next looked briefly like the right response. Enzo Maresca took over and produced one of the Championship's great single-season coaching performances. Leicester won the Championship title in 2023-24 with 97 points, playing attractive, dominant football. They were back in the Premier League within 12 months. It looked like a blip, a bad season, a correction, a return. It wasn't. The financial damage from that Championship year was already moving through the system, and the club had breached the EFL's profit and sustainability rules for the 2023-24 season in the process. An independent commission would eventually impose a 6-point deduction in the Championship in early this year, a penalty Leicester appealed and lost. The cost of building a Championship-winning squad on a Premier League wage structure had consequences that a promotion couldn't erase. Maresca left for Chelsea after winning the title. Steve Cooper came in and inherited a squad whose players had been signed for one style of football and were now being asked to play another. The wage bill in the Premier League that season was reported at over £66 million annually, a figure that produced an 18th place finish and another relegation. The gap between what Leicester were spending and what they were achieving on the pitch was among the worst in the division. They went down with 5 games to spare. The second Premier League relegation in 3 years, and this time there was no title-winning correction waiting, just the Championship, again with a wage bill nobody in the second tier could match and a structure that no longer had parachute payments large enough to cover the gap. Leicester entered the 2025-26 Championship campaign still carrying the weight of everything that had come before. Cifuentes started reasonably, 4th by October, unbeaten early. Then the slide. In 2026 alone, from the start of the calendar year to relegation confirmation last Tuesday, Leicester won just 2 of 20 Championship matches. Gary Rowett replaced Cifuentes in February and could not arrest it. The performances were not just poor. They were, according to many inside the division, performances that reflected a dressing room that had stopped believing. On April 8th, the appeal against the 6-point deduction was rejected by an independent panel, confirming the penalty and moving Leicester to 23rd. Mathematics became unarguable. On Tuesday, a 2-2 draw with Hull City at the King Power made it official. This is where the story stops being about football and starts being about survival in a much more existential sense. Leicester's current annual wage bill in the Championship stands at approximately £42.77 million, the highest in the division by more than £10 million. 7 of the 10 highest paid players in the entire Championship play for Leicester City. For comparison, Coventry City, who won this Championship title, carry a wage bill of around £15.6 million, less than half of Leicester's figure. According to football finance expert Kieran Maguire, the club budgeted for a top 8 Premier League finish and simply did not account for the downside. Critically, unlike most Premier League clubs, Leicester did not include relegation wage clauses in some of their highest earning contracts. Those wages do not reduce automatically. They have to be negotiated away, bought out, or carried. The revenue collapse that accompanies a League One relegation makes that wage bill unworkable almost immediately. Sky Sports has reported that Leicester's revenues are expected to fall by around 50% compared with the Championship, and they would be earning less than a third of what they were in the Premier League just last year. The solidarity payments available to a League One club from EFL Central Distributions dropped to a basic rate of around 12.6%, a fraction of the £30 to £50 million Leicester currently receives in parachute payments. And those parachute payments themselves continue to decline. Even if Leicester bounced back to the Championship within 12 months, the payment they would receive on their return would already be significantly reduced. The debt picture adds another layer. Analysis of Leicester's accounts points to high-interest institutional borrowing, including a facility with Macquarie that was serviceable when Premier League revenues were coming in. At League One level, with squad costs that need urgent reduction and revenues collapsing from every direction, that debt structure becomes something much harder to manage. The parent company, King Power International Group in Thailand, has faced its own severe commercial pressures following the collapse of Chinese tourism and domestic monopoly disputes. The era in which the club could rely on unlimited top-up funding from its owners is over. To be clear, this is not a club that simply had a bad few seasons. This is a club that accumulated losses of around £200 million over a 3-year PSR cycle, that built a wage structure around assumptions that proved catastrophically wrong, and that now faces the third tier of English football with a cost base the division cannot sustain. Some clubs survived this. Sunderland spent years in League One and made it back. Coventry City went to League Two and rebuilt across a decade. There are paths through. But the clubs that survived the third tier arrived there with clean finances, loyal owners, and structures that could absorb the shock. Leicester arrive carrying debts, a disputable cost base, a fractured relationship between the boardroom and its supporters, and the ghost of a man whose personal commitment was the entire foundation of what this club became. The questions waiting for them in League One are not just about football. Who manages the squad reduction? Who services the debt? What does the club look like in 2 years if promotion doesn't come quickly? The answers are not available yet. What is available is the table, and what the table says today is that Leicester City, Premier League champions, FA Cup winners, a club that made the whole world watch in 2016, will play third-tier football next season. On May of 2016, Vichai Srivardhanaprabha stood on a podium at the King Power Stadium and watched fireworks explode above a city that could not believe what it had just done. The players danced, the supporters sang, the manager cried. The whole world watched. 2.5 years later, he was gone. And in the decades since that title, the club he built has recorded hundreds of millions in losses, been twice relegated from the Premier League, been deducted 6 points for financial mismanagement, and confirmed the journey to a level of English football they have visited only once before in their entire history. The 2016 title will always be real. The story will always be real. Nobody can take back what happened that season and what it meant to the people who watched it. But as we said before, the crest on the shirt means nothing on a wet Tuesday in Preston. Leicester City are going to League One. And the question of whether they can find their way back, whether the structure, the ownership, the finances, and the belief can survive what is coming, is one that nobody inside the club has a comfortable answer to right now. Subscribe to Mega Football, hit the bell, and we'll see you soon.